you were tuned in to the New Orleans coaching search yesterday, you found out that Mike McCarthy reportedly has said thanks, but no thanks. He will sit out this coaching cycle. He will sit out a year. Feels like there will be opportunities for him next year. And the resounding chorus I'm hearing from most with this New Orleans Saints coaching search is, this is the worst spot in the NFL. They can't hire anybody. They're at the bottom of the barrel. It's the worst situation in the sport. There's no way anybody can rescue it. No one's even taking the job. Loomis is a disaster. This is the worst this franchise has ever been. Like, that's kind of the resounding chorus. The Saints are a laughing stock. And look, that all may be true. It may be true.
I was listening to OTB this morning. Hester said he talked to somebody that works in the NFL for a team, and they said that this is the worst job in the NFL in the last 10 years.
Okay. I can't disprove that. What I also want to point out is that the folks that have said no to this job are Ben Johnson, who's never been the head coach of a football game in the NFL in his life, Aaron Glenn, who's never been a head coach in his life, Joe Brady, who's never been a head coach in his life, and Mike McCarthy, who everybody told me, well, the guy's reached his ceiling. He can't win playoff games, can't beat the good teams, beats up on the bottom feeders. He's past his prime. He needs Aaron Rodgers to win a Super Bowl. And so, like, I'm sitting here going, okay, like, we can't have it both ways. You can't tell me that, like, well, Aaron Glenn comes from the Dennis Allen tree, and his defense got carved up, and you got to turn over a new leaf, and Joe Brady's too young, it's never done it, and Ben Johnson's not even going to give us a look, and McCarthy's over the hill, and we don't want Rizzy because he's the special teams coach, and then say, well, they're terrible. See, none of these guys will take the job. My thing on this is, like, we all knew that the Saints' job had its issues. None of this is new information. We know the salary cap. We know the quarterback. We know the roster and the age and the talent level and the no Pro Bowlers. We know all of that. But most of the time, when you're a head coach, you're taking over a pretty dicey proposition. Jaden Daniels doesn't fall in your lap very often, Dan Quinn. That's just not the way most of these work. So whoever it was that was going to take over this job, and whoever it is that will eventually take over this job, like, we know that there is a lot of work to do. What needs to be established, the Saints understand they've got to shed salary cap. They've got to let some of these older players age off the roster. They got to quit restructuring contracts. And there are roadmaps that have shown us that you can get this done. Houston has gotten it done. They went from a disaster who was turning over coach after coach after coach to a relevant team in the AFC. Are they one of the best teams in the AFC? It's a pretty tall mountain to climb with the Chiefs and the Bills hanging out over there and the Ravens right there, and you kind of know how that story goes. But they drafted Nico Collins, and they drafted Derek Stingley, and they drafted Will Anderson, and they drafted C.J. Stroud, and they did some smart things to immediately enhance that draft, that roster, and they turned it over in a couple of years. And that's what you're asking the Saints to do. If you told me that Jim Harbaugh was available in this cycle, I would think differently. If you told me that Andy Reid, as of pre-Chiefs from the Eagles, who had been to the NFC Championship game 4 times, if he was available, okay. This coaching cycle has been a bunch of guys who have never done it and Pete Carroll. So who's to say the guy that the Saints get is no better than Liam Cohen or no better than Aaron Glenn? Who's to say he's not better than Pete Carroll right now? I don't know. I don't feel like I'm 100% sure. The Saints are just striking out left and right. That's all I'm saying. Let me see what the result is. Let me see what that vision looks like. As long as the Saints are willing to shift gears and you understand the expectation level is not through the roof in 2025, you have to then realize, okay, you just got to take things slow. And maybe the coach that takes this job gets a chance to grow up a little bit and gain some experience on the job. It's not like the free agency market where you know what you're missing out on. If there's an all-pro guard on the market that won't give you a visit, you know you've missed the boat on that guy. He's an all-pro. All these coaches were laughing at the Saints over missing out on. there are mixed reviews on him. I have talked negatively about the Saints and the state of the organization for a year and a half. Y'all know that. It hasn't been overly popular. It's been popular. It hasn't been overly complicated. The Saints are in a bad spot. They're still in a bad spot. But I'm going to let this process play out and see who they land on. I don't know if Kellen Moore is any better than Ben Johnson or Liam Cohen. They kind of have the same profile. But nobody thought that Dan Campbell was a home run when he was hired. I've got my doubts about whether anybody thought that John Harbaugh was just going to be an absolute slam dunk. Mike Tomlin had been a coordinator for 10 minutes when he got hired. So the fact of the matter is that there are lots of different ways these things generally shake out. Some of the really clean processes end up in disaster. Some of the real clunky ones find gold. Most of them are unsuccessful. And if you ask me to bet what the result of this Saints coaching search is going to be, I would say probably unsuccessful. They'll probably be in the market for a new coach in the next 4 years, like most teams are, like they were when they hired Dennis Allen. But I'm just not at the point where I'm going to go nuts over the Saints swinging and missing on Joe Brady. I'm not. I'm not going to go nuts because Mike McCarthy wants complete control. Let's just see how it plays out. The Saints are a ways away from being good. Maybe you get somebody in that can learn on the job and grow up while you're overhauling the roster. And what's very obvious to me, I think, it's far more important how they handle the roster composition over the next 24 months than it is who this coach is right here. That's my opinion. The focus needs to be on the draft. You're going to get a coach, and you hope it's great. But the roster composition that is currently in New Orleans will not allow any coach to have a lot of success. That's the thing that's got to change most drastically. It's the Kirby Smart theory. It's players, not coaches. Players, not plays. The Saints got to get better players. That's one thing that they've got to do in a hurry. They'll get the coach thing figured out. We'll see. I'm not in a laughing mode at the moment just yet because you couldn't hire Liam Cohen. Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.